California Emerging Technology Fund provided grants in 2015 to CSU Fresno and Valley Vision to conduct AgTech pilots in Fresno and Yolo counties. The results were reported at a roundtable during the 2018 World Ag Expo that quantified how broadband access for farms can support precision agriculture to optimize resource use such as water and fertilizer, and increase crop production, as well as enhance access to external markets. The AgTech Conference and Roundtable during the 2025 World Ag Expo spotlighted progress since then and framed an action plan to support agriculture in California.
One thing that I heard from this meeting is we got to have internet access. If we don't get internet access, we're not like anything. So if we can focus on one thing as a group to try to get something done, let's do that. Then hopefully all this other stuff that everybody's sort of working on will move forward.
We're down here at the World Ag Expo in Tulare, where in addition to seeing all the great equipment, we've held 2 sessions today looking at the future of ag tech and what's needed to really make it successful. We've had discussions about broadband and infrastructure and workforce and financing, regulations, and a host of other issues. And what was really exciting was that this discussion included folks from government at every level, federal, state, local, private sector, and our university systems, UC and CSU, and community colleges. And all of us working together is what's really going to make it successful for us to move these ag tech initiatives forward. This was an opportunity for us to really discuss how we're going to take that ag tech further. And this was really organized by the California Emerging Technology Fund under the leadership of Sonny McPeak. Sonny had a vision of bringing together key leaders from across the different sectors to really share information about what's happening, what's needed, and then what we might take as next steps to find some solutions to some of the challenges we're all facing together. You know, this is obviously an incredibly important topic, but it's a very complex topic. And just as an example, right after the session this morning, I got cornered by a guy who wanted to talk about access to data. And he wanted access to all the ag commissioners' data. And I said, well, there's a reason that you don't have access to that, is because, you know, there are some questionable actors out there, and who knows what they would do with that data. And, you know, there's concerns about proprietary business, privacy, you know, et cetera. And there's a reason we don't make that kind of data available to everybody. In fact, that is one place where I'm pleased to say the University of California is quite adamant. We actually had a lawyer from DWR try to access field notes of one of our scientists a few years ago, filed a subpoena. And I'm pleased to say that the full weight and force of all the lawyers of USACE that not only know but hell know, do not get that. And I think that's important because we do need that data. We do need it. We need it for research. We need it for analysis. We need it to understand systems. We need it if we're going to really harness the power of artificial intelligence. But we've got to find ways to access and utilize it that maintains that privacy and that business and proprietary need. That's one reason why I really enjoy sometimes working with our national labs, Berkeley National Lab, Livermore National Lab, because they've been protecting nuclear secrets for decades, and they've got little black boxes that do amazing stuff. I got a tour once, it was quite exciting. So, you know, we can start finding ways to utilize that. And that's just one example of the complexity. You know, we get into putting towers or facilitating infrastructure. You got local permitting, you got local government, you got neighbors. I mean, I could go on and on and on. We all know what the challenges are. But we also know that we've got to make this happen. We know that agriculture needs the kinds of technologies we're looking at that you see across the road here. You know, robotics and drones and just a host of new technologies. Most of those are not going to do what we need if they don't have access to the internet. And not just access, but quality, fast access. We, as I mentioned in my remarks earlier, we did a project a couple of years ago where we ran over our research sites in 5 Points and Kearney and Lynn Cove, Don Cameron's Ranch, and West Hills Community College. That was our 5 sites. We ran a specially equipped drone to see what kind of access and quality and speed there was. It was horrible. The farm fields don't have it. I mean, heck, most of the farm houses don't have it. So that's an example of some of the stuff we've got to deal with. So before I turn it to Karen Ross for any additional comments and thoughts that she has, and AG hopefully is showing up soon. Sonny, I feel like I should offer you the floor to make a few comments, because you've been working on this a long time, and you're really the force that pulled this all together today, too.
And I did not want to have to speak. So I thought I did a really good job of making Glenda have to do all of the work at the conference, and she did a marvelous job. So I'm Sunny McPeak. I've worked in many aspects of the private sector and government, and for me, it's sort of really personal, having grown up here in the San Joaquin Valley and in a very rural part of Merced County, 6 miles out of Livingston. We're getting rural. And I have, for the last decade and a half, been leading an organization called the California Emerging Technology Fund, which is just this craziest name that came assigned to us by the California Public Utilities Commission. In 2005, out of corporate mergers, the California Public Utilities Commission envisioned that there should be a not-for-profit statewide organization with the mission to close the digital divide. So putting it out of government, but in a public purpose, not-for-profit, if you will, space. And then by 2 state laws, we have, I think, appropriately so, on one hand, extraordinary public reporting responsibilities. We actually report to the legislature every year. So it is through the Public Utilities Commission that you all get that report on what did we do with what is shareholders' money. It's not actually ratepayers' money that was put into this organization. The public benefits that have to be secured or approved by the Public Utilities Commission when one company buys another has to benefit the public. And we're often, even since that first time, and I wasn't involved in that first transaction, I was working for the state as Secretary of Business, Transportation, and Housing, wasn't paying any attention actually to what the PUC was doing. But at BT&H, we came in, and I of course had I had lots of things, but I also had transportation, and from the very beginning said to the 22,000 men and women at Caltrans, we are now going to be a mobility company. You know, it's not a transportation bureaucracy. The outcome is actually moving people, goods, and services, and broadband is a mobility strategy. So if I can offset a trip from the network, that's a net benefit, and I've reduced the impact on the environment. We've also now done a lot of work around how broadband is a green strategy. Actually can, in reducing those vehicle trips, reduce greenhouse gas emissions as well as criteria pollutants if it's ubiquitous deployment and universal adoption. And along the way, I blame Robert C. for a lot of this because he was the Deputy Secretary to A.G. Kawamura at the time, and I remember I was summoned to a meeting with them, and they had this brilliant idea of let's get all the fairgrounds connected with high-speed internet service because that would be a great asset for emergency response and also recovery. And then the whole concept of AgTech and supporting agriculture and being able to be an aid not only to the growing facet of it, but to the farmers themselves, as I said this morning, to every farmhouse who's basically the headquarters of the companies. And then I remember, Glenda, the speech you gave when I held you over to Mono County one time, and you were doing the Internet of Things. And so just really brought into the space. Along the way, we became pretty aware that there needed to be some quantified data around what difference would it make. I mean, all of you who know what your own situation is can explain eloquently why we do this. When we're reporting to policymakers who have to make the decision about do you spend money, then we need some more data. And we invested in 2 ag pilots. They were encouraging. That data actually got reported to the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission in the first Trump administration, A.G. Pai, who then, Ajit came out and actually spent a couple of days looking at what we were doing in California. And as you heard Mike say, and Linda, the potential in many dimensions when we are enabling the technology with broadband is about 10%. You can get a 10% ROI on anything. That is a good deal. Okay, so then we were here 5 years ago at the AgTech show to do a roundtable to sort of report that out. This time we were wanting to see where we are, and for the California Emerging Technology Fund to be able to provide to all of you some work products. So gavel to gavel on the conference, gavel to gavel here. I've got Daniel Sanchez who's recording all this. Gabe and I are recording it, and then we'll do a highlights video. So all of you get those work products, okay, that you can do something with. And Secretary Ross has always been an ally in this area, who with the legislature we can take the next steps. With the idea being, what is it we can do in California now if we are working together without a huge investment of any new dollars or any new legislation. Sometimes we want the legislation to take away stuff because mostly, now this is my own view. I am so distraught over the incredible morass of regulations we have in California that do not produce much. You know, as I say, we're so tied up in our own jockstrap in California with regulations. It's almost impossible to actually focus on what needs to be done. Okay. We can't edit some of this, I guess. I am in control.
It's noted. It's noted.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're editing that.
Okay, we can get the picture.
Strangulation by regulation.
That's a better way. It's a different part of the anatomy, Alexandra, but you got it, and it's okay. You're much more eloquent than I am.
Not even close, then.
I love this exchange. And so, and I've spent a fair amount, only about 5 decades in water in California. So there's all these things that we need, interwoven issues that need to be dealt with. But that's the purpose of this roundtable, and we have, to have the legislators here, thank you so much for spending the time. And then we'll get back to you. But we're all here to hear from you with this notion, okay, what is it we can do together? If you had this next increment of investment, what would that be with authority? If we find the money or we can persuade our administration and it makes sense for the legislature. And then very importantly, what also Robert was so instructive in making me understand as this old farm girl, how California provides input to the federal farm bill in the next iteration. And Jimmy Costa's folks are in the hallway. You have to come in. I will not let him off the hook. So come on in. But that's Glenda, thank you. I hope that provides the context for all of this.
So there's so many different ways to go on this, and we could spend all of our time on data and data privacy. But this is an area that to really utilize all that we already have and to get to better decision making, it's something that has to be solved. I spent a lot of time on this because of food safety. And that even within our Department of Food and Agriculture, we can't use all the data points across the department because what the marketing division has is under the marketing authority, and what inspection services has is under the inspection authority, and what the organic program has is under the organic authority. You get my drift. And so then you take that and compound that when you think about it's not only the level of regulations that we have, which all have, an end purpose, Is the complexity, the cost, the time, and the sheer hassle factor of the reporting, that no place can you take all the data that's asked for on every form, no place can you pre-populate a form that would actually ease that burden. So we can't, like, I could just spend all my time on what the state needs to do, but that's all an IT issue. And yet it goes back to the farm or whoever's hired, if you're a big enough organization, for the specialist that just does all that reporting, let alone the small and mid-sized people who do everything, and then somebody has to find the hours at nighttime to do it. If they could upload it all easily, wouldn't that be great? I mean, that's just one example. But I want to back up and go bigger, like, what is it that we need today, and how is it that we know we're looking into the future to make sure that we're giving the signals, whether it's to research or to your venture capitalists or whatever it is. And this is where I just had to give huge kudos to Western Growers. I do it publicly and I'll do it here. If you're not familiar with some of the work that they've done of bringing all of the specialty crops together, working in a very collaborative, cooperative way across trees and vines and berries and fresh produce and tree nuts. This is where our power is by being able to stand up and say specialty crops here. And if we put that into a basket of up and down the West Coast, or those places that are starting to attract, you know, some of our specialty crops being grown in other states, never as good as here. And increasingly in other parts of the world, can we finally get the venture capital and the specialists to come into this to think about specialty crops at a time where food is medicine and prevention should mean not only because we're the fastest growing economic sector in agriculture, we're also a big part of our healthcare crisis in this country and globally, nutritious food. So thinking about that requires a huge continuum of collaboration and making sure that cooperative extension and our commodity groups and all the crop care advisors are all involved in this process of translating what sounds good on the lab bench to making sure it can be practically applied in the field for all size farmers across all of these different commodities, and that's the hard part here. But there's many things that we could do, whether it's around all the diseases that attack vines and trees, like that kind of a problem that could really be scaled up on a global basis. And then thinking about it has to be not just the technology that we're deploying, that's the golly gee whiz gadgets, but I'm all about plant breeding faster and better to make sure we have the varietals, not only that can withstand some of the extreme weather events that we're starting to see, but also that can deliver those nutrition results that can save the water, that will be resistant to everything, check the box list. Plant breeding, biological solutions, which again, Western Growers is spending a lot of time in this space because the pressure on us in this state and the loss of products and the desire to do more biological solutions is absolutely crucial to the future of California agriculture. And there are opportunities out there, and again, it won't just happen from here, but it's because of the innovation and because of the investment that's here, because while we still can do something that nobody else does as well as we do, we have to work together, collaborate together, attract the capital to do this, and make it real and do it with a sense of urgency. We're at this point in time where Walt writes about if you don't read late at night or at 1:30 in the morning like I do, and it's your fault I have to take naps on the way home from meetings. Our major drivers are water, or lack thereof, or lack of it at the times that we need it and the places that we need it. The availability of labor and the cost of labor, which makes workforce development hugely important. We can't just create the solutions if we're not investing in the workforce development to be a part of that. And the biological solutions, like these are key drivers that are forcing acreage to other places. And I'm chauvinistic. I want to keep as much of it here for as long as possible. And always know that it'll be the best quality, one of the best practices in the world. And that's what we stand for, and we shouldn't shy away from that. But we need all the tools, and we need the new energy and the new thinking from the next generation to help us accomplish it. Other than that, I have no strong feelings.
No, that was perfect. I will say that one, what I hope extremely useful tool we're hoping to put on the table very soon, in fact we'll be announcing in a couple of weeks. When we recently did our statewide surveys, and several of you filled those out, on what was the Vision 2040 for UCA&R, one of the 7 grand challenges that rose up repeatedly around the state was regulations, compliance, and policy. Because of that, we're standing up a new policy institute, not to be a policy institute by itself, but to leverage our existing research. I mean, we have so many amazing scientists out there doing research on all kinds of things. We want to be able to tap into that and get it converted into plain English that a lay audience can relate to, get trainings for our people to speak science to policy, get the briefing papers, do the workshops, etc., and give our legislators, our elected officials, the tools they need as well as local communities. So we're in the process of structuring that right now, and it will be formally announced in just a couple of weeks, I hope, which I hope will be a very useful tool in all of this. AG, I gave you a chance to settle down. Okay.
Sorry to.
No, it's okay. It's okay. So you gave us some comments this morning. You have anything else you want to add to that or highlight before we get into a discussion here about maybe next steps and future actions? That's really what this session is about.
I think for the group, just a real quick background. 2002, Secretary Lyons, CDFA Secretary Lyons was with 4 other states, Florida, New Mexico, Arizona, and Texas. And on a napkin, they said, you know, we don't get specialty crop dollars out of the Farm Bill. And in fact, then was born New Mexico, Florida, Arizona, California, and Texas. And they said, you know what, we have, they counted up the congressmen, they counted up some of the other states like Michigan that has tremendous fruit vegetable crops. And they said, we need to start to lobby for a specialty crop block grant concept. And you might remember the Buy California program that came out. Interestingly, there was a recall from Governor Davis. Somehow I showed up with some other folks with Governor Schwarzenegger in 2003. And then we were blessed because Robert C. was with us. We stole him from USDA. And Robert is actually the architect of the specialty crop block grant. The way you see it today and the way the monies that come to California are pretty significant because of the percentage of total value that he was able to put into that farm bill. And we were told by commodity crops, you guys get in the back line. There's no way that specialty crops should get any money out of the farm bill. We actually were told that at one point in time without them realizing that over 50% of all the, by dollar value, not by weight, by dollar value, 50% of all the crops in the United States are specialty crop dollars for revenue in terms of farm gate dollars. And I just want to give that background because now with the new administration, we're going to have to keep the ball on making sure that in whatever farm bill comes out, that the specialty crop block grants continue to be stronger and stronger. And there's more lines than ever, only because back then nobody was talking about nutrient-dense crops as food as medicine as a part of why we should eat differently or could we change our diets. And so there's some beautiful new alignment, if you will, for innovative collaboration, whether it's farm family food box, whether it's was it Medi-Cal that has an actually vegetable box that you can get with your Medi-Cal supplement card. There's some really neat things going on. And for the fresh produce industry, I think we're of course have the ability to be on the rise. We do have competition issues. I'm a Southern California grower, and whether you're out of Imperial Valley, the 25,000 acres of table grapes that we lost to go into Mexico just across the border, same Sonoran Desert, they moved out in the last 13, 12 years. We're losing commodity competitiveness in many ways because of the cost of labor, because of the regulatory burdens. And that being said, people are innovative, people are looking for new ways to harvest, new ways to find new crops, and it's an exciting time, and as Karen knows, because she's been there helping drive this, I think specialty crops have nowhere to go but up, and all the different new kinds of crops we can grow. I don't know if we're up to 420, 30, 40 crops that are commercially grown in the state, but there's a lot grown in California. So I just wanted to give that as a background and thank Glenda, you and the crews, Western Growers. It's always going to be one of those wonderful focused industry associations because they do represent fresh produce. And that's why they can be a little bit more focused than maybe some of the other individual groups, or some people just have a very broad look at what agriculture is. That is, and I apologize for that.
No, that's great, thank you. Before we jump into the private sector partners here to offer up some thoughts, and particularly we're going to start moving into this call to action, I want to give our elected officials a chance to augment, deepen, something you forgot to say this morning you want to throw on the table now, or maybe you've got a thought on that call to action, the next step.
Do you want to say something?
I know you want to say something.
I always want to say something, so I got in politics. I was a true 4-H member, and I'm just kidding. My homage is a lifelong 4-Her, but I'm going to echo what I said this morning. We have a true issue with regulation in the state of California. I don't think that's going to change in the near future because considering the deficits that we're facing, I think we're going to find ways to monetize regulation, unfortunately. I'm hoping that that's not at the expense of agriculture, but that's something that I foresee in the future. Outside of just agriculture, I've been exploring a lot in the artificial intelligence world, the AI world, that is not new to agriculture. We've been using AI for years, but it's going to beef up and kind of become more robust. And so because of that, I've been investigating what the international market for AI looks like. And what I'll tell you is here in the United States, we're extremely regulated in the AI space, which is a safe thing because without it being harnessed, it could be dangerous. But in the state of California, there's even further constraints on AI. What terrifies me about that is that if we over-regulate AI, international markets in places that maybe aren't as friendly to the United States are going to take off and absolutely own the AI space. The research and development that are needed for things in AI, I understand, can be costly. But we need to fight, especially in the AgTech space, that we are having that research development, those patents, those technologies here. That we're not negotiating with other markets because we don't have control over those markets. We're seeing it in the autonomous vehicle space. Because AgTech is growing rapidly and becoming something that we need more and more, we just need to be wary of that and make sure that we're making investments in the right areas to continue that. The other thing that I'm seeing is because of the amount of regulation, we're seeing fewer of your small scale farms and more large farms. What I will tell you from a market approach is we need all of those farms. The small farms are grateful for the large farms that can fund the research and development for the technologies, which is great. But the large farms also need the small farms to make sure that we have market stability and health. Along those same lines, when it comes to the tech space for agriculture, we need to make sure that we're making those investments to get this technology up and going. But then once the technology is up and going, continuing that research and development so that it becomes accessible and affordable for all scale farms, not just the large scale farms that can afford it. So these are things that I'm foreseeing from the policy level that we will probably be engaging with a lot this year is in the AI space. Making sure that it's a useful tool, it's not a tool that's abused, but making sure that the United States, and particularly California, if I have anything to do with it, is the leader in that technology.
Excellent points. Jeff, or you?
I'll say one thing. To the Assemblywoman, I see those regulations portion. I can move this over to another industry with gas, right? We have, well, our vehicles as well. Industries are afraid to move forward. A lot of them come to my office in the past couple of years asking like, hey, where are you guys going to go next? You're going to go hydrogen? You guys going to go electric? Because we don't want to go fully in with our fleet like we did a few years ago because that's what California told us to do, and then you guys pulled out and left us out to dry. So that's a big issue also that's going on here that basically we just need to get off the pot in a sense for the Assembly as a whole. Because a lot of industries are just waiting on direction. They want to go and follow and do what they can. We all want to do the right thing, but it's usually the politics up in Sacramento that's holding everybody back, and it's ridiculous. So hopefully that can get somewhat solved. I don't know. We have some more fighters up there now, so I'm very happy with that. But that's a big issue as well.
I look to the future in agriculture, in innovation, and my concerns of today with workforce and regulation and all these different things. And as a business owner, I say to myself, how do I decrease my expenses and increase my revenue, right? How do I do that in this environment? The utilization of technology can assist, but it's not the end all to be all, as we know. So my hope is, as we go into this legislative year and the following year, that we are looking not only at today's problem set, but tomorrow's problem set as well, and saying, if we're going in this direction, what can we do to mitigate the over-regulation in this problem set? So I want to make sure that we keep California ag in California, and make it profitable for those that are here. It is a challenge, but what we can impact is future technologies, so that we don't get caught up in the over-regulation, as we get there. So those are some of the things that I'm paying attention to.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? I know we've got a couple staffers here on behalf of you folks. Jenna?
I don't have any comments to share
I'm
from
not
the
trying to put you on the spot.
I know she was here this morning, and ag is obviously one of her top priorities as she represents Fresno, Tulare, and Kern County, and I know that is one of her focuses, along with what Councilman Morales mentioned, is oil and gas industry and how that impacts ag and everything in transportation throughout the state. So I'm just here to kind of listen and comment back to the senator on the thoughts that I brought up here today.
Hello, my name is Damian Douglas. I work for Assembly Member Dr. Joaquin Rambler's office. I don't have anything to add. Just want to let you know that I am here, I am listening, and that your questions and answers and your issues will get back to the members. So thank you for having me.
Okay, great. Thank you for being here. And let's get you a chair in here.
Yeah.
Oh, I can hear fine out here.
Yeah.
I got it all.
You gotta be in the room.
We can get you a chair.
I'm okay.
Right there.
I'm okay.
I know you're okay. That's what
Please,
we
not-
We want
not
to get
because of
you
me.
a
Okay, let's
chair.
Yes, right there.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Larry Salinas. I am the Deputy Chief of Staff for Congressman Jim Costa. I've been on the job all of 20 days, and the Congressman has told me that I have to say it's the best 20 days of my life. That's standard, but like Jenna and some of the other staffers, I'm here to listen in this robust discussion. I want to introduce my colleagues, Diego Cruz, who handles the Congressman's ag policy here in the district, and Daniel Sepulveda, who runs our Visalia Tulare County operation. So glad to be here.
Just to add a small piece to that too. Sorry, I'm in the back here for you guys, but just as far as the Farm Bill goes, I apologize for coming in a little bit late, but I know that's obviously the big one coming out of Congress. And I just want to, kind of on behalf of the Congressman, just with open arms, we're always open to any opinions on what should be included in the Farm Bill, what can help, spur some of the innovation that we're talking about in this room. And that can come from our innovators like Linda, you and your team, but also from the industry and from other members of our respective offices. So just open ears, and I'm here to listen.
Great, thank you. So now we get to what I hope is going to be a lively conversation, because you've heard from state government, you've heard from state elected officials, from others, academia, etc. But now we've got a mix of some folks that are out in the field actually doing projects and representing interest groups. And the question we've asked them to focus in on, just to get our conversation going, is what are the actions you'd like to see us taking fairly soon with any new policy, legislation, hopefully within existing resources, because we all know budgets are tight, that would help us move ag tech forward. And several things have been thrown on the table. Linda, I don't mind letting you have a quick word, but I do have a few folks I definitely want to call out. But go ahead. You were very energetic.
I do. I have two things. Speaking to both federal and state electors, two things that are so important for our industry in ag tech. The first one is the BEAD program, that money that's coming from the federal government and how it's being administered in the state of California. There's definitely a prejudice, if you will, that the money be used to lay fiber. And laying fiber will not help AgTech. It is inefficient and ineffective and completely monetarily a non-starter to try to lay fiber to every rural operation on the west side of Fresno County. It's like putting an off-ramp from I-5 to every small farm. It's not going to happen, and it's been acknowledged that there's not enough money in the BEAD program to do that. And so we know that there's broadband technology with Tirana that it performs as well as fiber, and we know that that's the only thing that's going to reach for AgTech, and yet they won't use any of that money to do it. And Sunny knows this as well as I do, and it's going to stop. It's going to stop everything. And so that's really, really, really important that someone at the CPUC, okay, I said it on camera, someone at the CPUC realizes that we need some money for AgTech, for broadband, and that we can do it, and it's as fast and reliable as fiber. That's the first thing, and that's really important. And the second thing is, well, I'll just leave it at that. That's the most important. That's the most important. Thank you.
No, Linda, I appreciate that because that was distinct and it was an explicit thing we can't look at and try to do something about.
And we like to hear that.
Exactly. And bite-sized things are great. I don't know if that's bite-sized, but at least it's distinct. I'm going to ask Hannah Johnson to help me right now because she's got a group of folks that she's been organizing to come in and speak to some specific examples. So Hannah?
Yep. So we put
Stand up, please.
She is not my mom, she's my best friend though. We put together a really solid group, I think, to help you on what's happening right now. What are the holes in these programs? How are these programs talking to each other? From the farmer perspective, from the Western growers perspective, from the AgTech startup perspective, who started as a farmer and now he's really in it. And then from UC-A&R's perspective from the Vine. So I'll just quickly tell you about our program because I think it's helpful. We do a field trial readiness program. So we do an open call for applications. We find out this is what growers really want. This is the technical solution they need and they can't find it and they don't want to vet it and they don't know where to start. We do an open call. We figure out who's doing what in what space, how much it costs, what it looks like, put them through the ringer, get them prepared to pitch, vet their technology, have PCAs look at their technology, have our A&R specialists look at their technology. We do a few months of that cohort and then we put them in the field. And we invite all the farmers and the growers that are saying, this is the exact thing I want, now I want to see it and I want this whole thing to be for free. And we do those at our rec locations. And it's the missing piece, I think. And we're doing it on a shoestring budget. And we're going to start to do it up and down the state. We're getting ready to do our second one in Ventura in a few weeks. And what has happened from that is the first one, we sold 10 units of a small technology company nobody knew about. They got a verbal investment from a grower on site who was like, I want you to come back to my farm and I want to figure out how to tailor this to my operation. A company from Australia demoed, went through our cohort. They were planning to move their headquarters to Washington to work with apples. They weren't really familiar with the Central Valley. We had a lot of farmers there who were super interested in their tech. They're headquartering now in the Central Valley and they're going to fully staff up. I think organically programs like this are going to continue to grow because they're farmer-led. We asked the startups what they needed, we asked the farmers what they needed, and then we built this program. There are others in the room that are doing similar. Western Growers is doing a lot in that space too. So I just thought today it was really helpful to hear from people that were in the weeds. So we've got Walt Duflock, Ben, I'm not sure if you want to chime in too. We've got Casey Creamer, Jason Gianelli, and then Curtis Garner. So I don't know if you want to ping the questions, Linda, or how you want to do this.
Well, I think you know what the questions are. I mean, we want to hear from you some examples. Jason, looks like
I got some comments just to piggyback off of what Assemblywoman Macedo had to say. So with that, like with AI and everything coming down, I mean, this state, with AI, it takes a lot of energy, right? Electricity. I mean, we have a grid problem already. So, for example, so we have natural gas, water. So basically, I'm a 4th generation farmer. My family farms in Kern, and we farm in Kings County, by the way. And we have our own, about 5,000 acres of our own stuff, but we also do all the management for all the dairies, and we do all the feed crops. And basically, what I do is I'm going to be frank, I take shit and I make it good. So, So, so that's what we do, and but on top of that, we farm 34,000 acres total. So I'm a fourth generation, I don't sleep, so obviously. But going back is, we have a grid problem. Like, I have a natural gas motor that we had to pull because we were either going to have to spend $60,000 getting to comply with CARB, or we're going to have to get electric. So we applied for electric, and they said they could not get electric to me because of the grid can't handle the power and the load, and it's going to take, I won't be able to get electric to that well until 2027. And so we had to put 60 grand into the natural gas motor. So, and it's not PG&E's fault. We have a problem with the PUC. We have a problem with, I mean, it's everybody, right? Unelected bureaucrats. We have a lot of things going on. But if we want to talk about AI and really get down to it, we're not going to have the energy to run it. And that's also going to be another factor of, like what Ali said about other about those companies going abroad, and then our data being exposed at that point. And I think that's the other thing. The second thing is, with energy and labor, is the technology is good, and not all technology fits everybody. Every farm's different. Not everybody runs on the same spectrum. Like, I farm differently than my neighbors farm differently than I do. But we have one common goal, and that's to make the best and most healthy and food possible. You know, whether it's for cows, whether it's for humans, whatever. That's what we do. And but I think we try to blanket ag as all in one, and we try to look at it, and so everybody expects all farmers to be on the same level, page level, and it's just not how it operates. And then the other thing goes back to labor, is like and of course Hannah's group with the F3 program and everything like that, is getting the guys to operate it at that point. And I think if we really want to talk about internet and everything, Starlink is probably your best bet. I mean, we use Starlink on the ranches. But we also use Unwired, which is really good too. But Starlink, I mean, and then also like John Deere has the capability of using Starfire, which directly comes off the GPS modems off of our tractors and everything like that too. So there's a lot of capabilities out there, not just fiber optics or anything like that. So I think everyone just looks in their bubble, but and thinks, oh, we got to have fiber to get high-speed internet. Not necessarily. I have Wi-Fi in my pickup, you know, so I'm out in the middle of Corcoran on my laptop. So there's other options out there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Casey?
Well, there's probably a lot I could say, but I would say we've made a lot of progress. I'll start with the positive. We have. I was back in 2005 and 6, 7, 8, and with the cotton growers and all the special crop coming in and saying how we're going to take the farm bill money from you. There's a huge fight in California about that. And so there's been a lot of progress. Special Crop Farm Bill Alliance, and I'll come back to that. We've made a lot of tremendous progress in the Farm Bill and in getting some research and support and automation, but there's still a whole lot more that we need in that. And so maybe my first ask is, we've got to coalesce around that. If California has different priorities than what's in the Special Crop Farm Bill Alliance priorities, that's a big problem. So first look at that, and how do we enhance that? How do we continue to advocate for what's in there? Because I'll be honest with you, those priorities are already Christmas tree. It's just about anything and everything that was thought of is thrown in there. There's automation and mechanization programs in there that are not currently funded that need to be plussed up, or completely new programs. There's concepts for offset programs to allow growers to get cost share for automation and technology. Those are huge pots of money that we need to access, and they can enhance our ability to do AgTech. But one of our biggest problems is that we fight within each other, because the big farm, small farm, you know, we're very specialized out here in California with the diversity of the specialty crops versus the Midwest, corn, soybeans, cotton, rice. And so there's a whole lot of fighting that's going on back in DC and elsewhere. And so kind of where California ag gets positioned is, well, we're a Democratic state. So, but then when we have a Democratic administration, you don't have enough votes to get anything done because you need to get things through the Senate and 2 senators in each Midwest state. And when you got Republican administrations, there's no new money for California. So we kind of get hit both directions. So we've got to do everything we can to support each other and speak with one voice, and not let politics get in the way of things that work. And so I would say, we've got the Western Grower Center for Innovation and whatnot. The problem is not enough money, resources coming to it. Could we 10 times that? Probably, right? So do that. Farm Bill research. I mean, citrus fund. I'll be front here. We got cut out of the extension of the Farm Bill due to last minute politics. It was in and then it was out. Right? There's like core basic elements that we're not funding today that could help us today. And so probably my other big sort of comment is all the new novel type stuff is important and it's needed, but a lot of times we're still missing like the simple stuff, right? We're not providing enough support to operative extension advisors, technical assistants, to growers on the ground to help them with the rules and regulations and all the things that are easily doable and available today because they just don't have the access to it. So in addition to just looking at the new and shiny things that we can do, farmers are falling behind here in California. We're losing, as much as all of the fruits and vegetables and all the healthy stuff and all the nutrition, all the positive, the investment is going into foreign countries. It's not going here. And so we've just commissioned a citrus report, and I talk a lot about being optimistic about citrus, and I am, but we're still losing, right? I'm optimistic in the sense that we're probably positioned pretty well within California, but it's still on a decline. And so we've got to find ways from a policy perspective to turn the direction a little bit, at least stop the bleeding a little bit, support the farmers who are here, and then continue to work together to try to bring the resources and investment here. Because right now there's not really an environment that makes people want to invest here.
I think Sigma has a lot to do with that too.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
I mean, that's the why would you, like for us, like we can't just pick up our farm and move it. But like if you're a new investor and you want to come in and you want to see Sigma, you're looking at all these different areas and you see areas getting cut, you see areas how much you're paying for water, and it's like why it's all unknown. And so I sit on a lot of water boards too. So I deal with a lot of Sigma stuff, but that's the biggest factor too. If you want new money, you want new investment, you want new, someone's got to pay for all that. So that's the only way you're going to get it. So Sigma is going to be another factor of making your bubble smaller.
I can say something on this really quick. Juan and I actually toured a clothing company, that their brand is using organic cotton. That is an up and coming trend, is organic cotton. And they were talking about the investments that they're doing in India, complete water treatment facilities for entire villages, and this huge investment in making sure that women have jobs and things like that. And this is happening in a foreign country. And so at the end I said, well, how much of your cotton comes from the United States? He said about 20%. So 80% of their organic cotton operation is overseas, and they're making those investments that we need here in California because the state legislature can't figure out an efficient way to do it. They're doing it in other countries. So we have to reinvent the wheel a little bit on making California business friendly overall, but also ag friendly, because I'd much rather the clothing company have California cotton being used rather than cotton that's being grown overseas.
Our quality's better anyways.
100%, but they're not worried about quality. They just want to be able to say that they're using cotton, and then, hey, look at these wonderful things we're doing in India.
And they have they're naturally organic anyways because they can't afford, they're all 1 acre farmers, so 1 to 10 acre farmers, that's it. So it's just like China, same thing. That's why China still has to buy our cotton and our land, because they can't match our quality.
Right.
So their 20% is blending with their other, quality, their other Indian cotton.
This is to sum up, everyone has to take this to heart. It's hard not to just get focused on your commodity, your farm, your county. what Casey said is so true. If we all were unified and we have a plan to show people, like sharing the plan and the vision, that can help a lot. It helps everybody that's in a committee and has to vote, is that they see it's a strong, but to the extent that we can also bring when you think about the value chain of agriculture and all of the support services and inputs that happen before you ever plant the seed, let alone adding the value to get it all the way to a market, it's a long value chain, and that could be really helpful in moving the needle as well.
And actually, we do have an ag vision, CDFA, we do have an ag vision that's got a lot of great recommendations in it that people could potentially rally around and get into specifics.
Well,
I want to have Western, oh, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, well, the other thing we have too is like when we put investments into our, like our technologies, like on our dairies, like we have methane digesters, right? So, I mean, Karen, you're a big proponent of it, and I thank you for everything you've done with that too. And like we're taking methane and putting it back into the natural gas lines. So, and we sell it to SoCal Gas. On our dairies, we have power plants. We have all this stuff. Well, last year they were trying to take the funding away from those digesters, and we've already put up all this capital. It goes back to the point of like where we put up all this capital, and then the state wants to take it away from us. Yeah. So how does that make any sense? And the ROI on each digester is probably about 4 years before you get your return on that investment.
That's the common thing in every industry. Huh? Every industry, that's the same thing I would say.
I just wanted, I was asking Jason, when you say the state wanted to take it away, which agency, which?
I believe it was. It was.
It's a lot of pressure from EJ, and
yeah.
so it has put unbelievable pressure here. And it was also, I've never seen it happen so rapidly at the national level on some of the tax provisions for biomethane. The same voices carried through. So it's just something that we all have to work hard.
But Karen, I think your voice was very instrumental in helping squash that, last year with the dairy groups and everything. But that's just what we have to go through and we deal with that. It's like dairies, like there's no waste. It's like you want us to go the methane route, okay, we take methane, put it back in the natural gas line. We got CNG trucks, we go right to those. So, but you want to take those dollars away from us to be able to make it better or improve the technology, and it's hard to, how do you survive like that?
See, I think that's one reason why I wanted to stand at this policy institute, because I think that's where we can get some of the research on the reason why biomethane and get it to those EJ groups in a way that they can maybe understand. I know it's tough. I know I'm optimistic, but still, we have to do it. Not doing it is not the answer either. We've got to reach out to them.
I would say it's a great point. Capital allocation in the state is frozen. We're going elsewhere because we've changed our mind a lot. So anything we can do to get capital allocators more confident in long term would be huge. And I'll just double down on the earlier point. I think AI and crypto together are taking a flamethrower to an energy policy in California that's just become short-sighted, right? We have massive energy needs. You argue Silicon Valley allowed California to make a lot of non-business friendly decisions for a couple of decades, right? We had Cisco, Intel, Oracle, roll through a bunch of them, right? And all of a sudden, the next generation of tech is not all here, right? Crypto, a lot of that's based in Colorado. They were first, they were friendliest, they wrote it up that way. We talked about autonomy. Who's leading autonomy? Why? Governor Ducey. Governor Ducey
we
said,
have a
I
task
want to
force
lead.
for that, Walt.
I'm in.
I know.
I'm in.
I insisted.
Look me up. And so we're losing in these key segments. And we're protecting some of the stuff that's probably costing us a little bit. And so what we see, what Ben and I have been working hard on the last couple of years, is we would request less dollars going toward individual startups. Don't pick winners. Venture capitals and capital allocators, they'll do that. But we need to do stuff like, and I'll put a humble brag in for our stuff, we like Reservoir Farms as an approach, right? It's the logical extension of the Center for Innovation in Tech, taken to an on-farm field robotics opportunity where the startups can share resources. Why do 10 startups need a deer tractor each? Let's get 2 deer tractors and they can share them, right? Why do they need 20 acres each? Let's get 30 acres and have them share it, right? So here's the funny part. We're working with Danny Bernstein and the Reservoir team. Danny's awesome, perfect GM for this whole thing. It is gonna cost us $6 million all in to stand up and operate Merced and Salinas locations for trees and vines, fruits and veg, and it'll be a 2-year fundraise. Then we hope to get to break even. Now imagine how much more capital we need for one in Slow, one in Imperial, one in the Central Valley down the Bakersfield way, right? So we probably need somewhere between 10 and 15 million bucks to stand up 5 of these, 6 of these, 2.5, 3 million each. Capital is the fuel for this thing, and what it does, it changes the time to market for these startups. It changes the capital to get to market for these startups, because venture capital, for everyone who missed the email, is in a rough spot, right? Statewide, from 21 to 23, and 24 doesn't look any better. We went down 85% in IPOs, over 1,000 to 150. We dropped 50% in core venture capital, all segments, 340 to 170 billion. AgTech dropped worse than that. We dropped 70%. We went from 53 billion to 16 billion. We've got to make that capital go further, and we've got to do more things like Strawberry Center. I'll get off my soapbox after this one real quick. But Strawberry Center is huge. Strawberry Commission, Strawberry Industry, took all the things that are not venture fundable, right? Which turns out to be everything but harvest. Only harvest is fundable, and we can't get that done anyway. Long story. But every other task, runner cutting, hole punching, you name it, right? They put a student team with a commission-funded person at the Cal Poly Strawberry Center. They've now commercialized 3 of these at 3 price points, $25,000, $10,000, and $1 million, with Central Coast suppliers, no venture capital involved. So imagine strawberry guys telling them what to build, approving it on the way there, student teams doing the work, led by professionals, paid for by the commission, and now they're to market through 3 Central Coast providers without a dollar of venture capital. We could stand up the Veg Center, Strawberry Center Part 2, we could stand up other fruit centers, right? I'm biased toward Cal Poly, but we could do it other places. That's not a small lift, but that would be huge. We have too many segments in AgTech for specialty crops that are not large enough or fast growing enough to get Silicon Valley, where I live's attention. But we have alternate ways to do it.
And Walt, I totally agree with you, and as you know, UCA&R is a big partner in Reservoir.
Absolutely.
I will push back on one thing though. To the degree we can utilize existing facilities like my research extension centers, we need to be standing up stuff on them. Because otherwise you're just literally gonna put us out of business, and we're your free source of info.
Well, I would argue you guys are the 80% of the field trials and testing that happen before they get to commercialization stage, right? So you guys have to scale more than we do, right? We want the stuff that's coming when the growers are ready for it, but that first 2 to 3 years of R&D, they don't need to see reservoir farms, right? They can work on co-op extension land with co-op extension agents.
But I need some of the revenue from that final stage to keep these properties up and running. I'm operating on a shoestring too.
That is fair.
I'm just saying, I'm operating on a shoestring. I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul all the time.
So my question is, in the last decade in particular, we've had several campuses that shall go unnamed. They get all excited because they want to get an earmark for their own smart farm. How many smart farms do we have in the CSU and UC system, just talking about public universities, that if we could think different, like, and convince chancellors and campus presidents that
Well,
we've got a
not
better
just
idea.
UC and CSU. There's 20, 30 community colleges out there that have beautiful farms, that have nice farms. I'm actually trying to figure out how to get my advisors to be able to have access to do research on that.
Yeah.
We should be looking at them too.
Well, and that's what Fenimore's done in Salinas, right?
Yeah,
I mean, he's
yeah.
literally used
That's
that
right.
Alice South campus as
Exactly.
his playground, as he should.
And the startups will ask, and they'll say, can we do these type of things on the extensions? And it becomes cost prohibitive. You know, Curtis, please feel free to come in here as a startup. But
Well, you know, like it's $5,000 to run a trial, which is, it's not an insane amount of money, but it's cost prohibitive when I want to run like 55 different trials, right? When you go to that type of level. But Steve Fenimore did a phenomenal job growing out crops for us, allowing us to get machine learning data and do everything. So it worked extremely well, I think.
No, actually, there's different types of trials. A trial that's academic has certain stringent requirements that cost a lot of money. A trial that's a couple business companies showing off their different equipment against each other, that's a different activity.
Well, it's how do you have to work the red tape? Like, they came as a great gift from us to that, because we couldn't go through all the rigmarole and the bureaucracy and everything to do it all, and all the special insurances, this, that, and the other. Like, I didn't have time to wait to do that. We needed to execute. And, it's a matter of days, not months, right? But, or else we miss a season and we miss a whole year.
Yeah, and I'm not saying everything should go through an academic facility, UC, CSU, or community college, but I am saying there are properties there that if we were strategic, could be utilized, and they do need some of that final stage activity.
Well, I think this is really interesting. I'd be really curious about your ideal scenario. Like, how much does it cost? What's the trial? How quickly do you need it? What's the space requirements?
Yeah, like, are you just talking about basically you need a place that you could rent? Or do you need the expertise, like, where do you need people, or is it just the infrastructure? That's like, if we all were clear on what that means.
It's the business model of the reservoir.
Yeah,
the reservoir is based upon the needs of the startups. It's after, so we'll take an example here of UVC light for powdery mildew. That's something that's directly come out of research that have come out of co-op extension. Now companies have developed equipment, trick robotics, Saga robotics. I just spoke with another one earlier today from Australia. These are commercialized products in AgTech that have stemmed from that research, and that research is fantastic. When you get past the research, it says, okay, the co-op extension does not move at the speed at which startups in industry have to move at. And that's why the foundation and the business model for the reservoir has started, because of the need for that commercialization and moving as fast as you can. If you're in Salinas, you have 8 weeks to do some stuff before the season's over. It's the same thing in Yuma, same thing in other places. So, absolutely tying us all back together, the co-op extensions and our university, Richard and Steve have just been incredible in Salinas. Those can all play together. We've just all said that if we're going to use co-op extensions for this type of commercialization, they have to move at the speed of industry.
The other thing with that too is the UCs and the co-ops, they can go and look at, like, if you're, because EPA, all this stuff, like environment, OSHA, everything like that, you guys have a better view. Like, if, like, a company could go in and put it underneath your programs and have you guys trial it or demo it and make it better, more, to meet those qualities, and it could actually be a better incentive for those companies instead of having to do it on their own and having to go through OSHA on their own. You guys could be that middle gap, because that's the biggest issue we have.
So this is an action step we should take. Like, we're working on a master plan for science, research, technology for agriculture. That's long term. But what first step of that is, what are the assets we have that could really help accelerate this?
It's like the Gus sprayers. Look at all the money they put up just to be able to get the first one out. My family runs one of the largest spray companies south of Kern County. We spray like 200,000 acres. We were the first ones to buy those Gus's, about 6 of them the first year, and we love them. But at the same time, the amount of capital that company had to put up to just be able to get it going, and then going through the regulations. It should have been out 3 years, 4 years sooner than it really should have been. It's just like blue and white. They have their program too. But the problem is you still have to have a driver on the tractor, because OSHA is demanding, if it has a steering wheel, it has to have a driver. If it has a steering wheel, it has to have someone in the cab. So
another great example.
So there's a lot of conflict.
Does everyone know what blue white is?
Yeah.
So blue white is an aftermarket product. It turns the tractor autonomous.
Yeah.
And John Deere has their own kit that does the same thing. And in both cases, the driver's not actually off the tractor yet.
Well, and I think this is a great
Is there
example.
a state that has given a green light to?
Washington State actually has passengers like we did to protect the drivers. So in Washington, in Yakima Valley, you can do it.
So there's legislation that exists that can be replicated scale.
And this is a great example of all of this, about how, again, leveraging our existing resources.
But the UC could.
There's certain things that work great at UC, other things not. That's one reason why we stood up the Vine, so that we could speed up. It's not, it handles stuff that isn't the same. But there are other options too, getting us back to broadband. And Mike's aware of this project up in Sonoma County. So Scenic which I always forget exactly what that acronym stands for.
Well, it used to stand for the Corporation for Education Networks in California.
Oh, yeah, there you go. So CENIC, it's a parastatal that is designed to get fiber to educational facilities, which we managed to make the case that all of our facilities are educational facilities, even if they are in the boondocks. So we can get fiber to them, and we've been doing that and then throwing up towers. Well, up here, thanks to Joy Sterling's brilliant idea, she got the Sonoma County grape growers to say, hey, we want to be a pilot, because CENIC wants to get into helping agriculture, but they got to work with an educational facility. And so we said, okay, count us in. And I don't know that we're actually doing anything other than we're a pass-through, I guess. So we're the educational facility hosting, but you want to give them what we're putting out into Joy's land?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're, I would say Joy is to Sonoma what Don Cameron is down here. She has pure passion for...
That's a great analogy.
Yeah, but she has pure passion for taking care of precision ag opportunities and really promoting them. So we're turning her entire 500-acre facility into a precision ag showcase. And going back to what Linda actually said earlier, what we're doing out there is we're bringing a combination of fiber, which by the way is going to cost $46,000 to run it just to her facility, which is why fiber is not always the only solution. On top of that, we're building the IoT network around her facility where they can do a lot of the same things we are doing at Terra Nova. A lot of soil moisture sensors. We're putting humidity sensors under the canopies. We're deploying a bunch of sensors that do frost protection so that when they need to cover the grapes in water, literally what they have to do today up at a winery is they send laborers out into the field to ensure that the grapes are being covered. Because if the 50-cent little filter head doesn't spray the water, the entire vine is gone. We can monitor all of that with simple IoT devices that cost $50. But if you don't have connectivity, it's useless. You know, so that's what we're doing with Joy, and it's the same thing we're doing down here. But without that sort of, excuse the pun, but without that canopy of connectivity over the farms, over the ranches, it doesn't work. You could have all the startups, you could have all these test facilities that you want. When you get out into the field, if there's no connectivity, it's literally great.
Yeah.
Linda, you mentioned broadband, so let me give you a small farm perspective. We farm 130 acres of table grapes and pistachios in Fresno County. From downtown Fresno, 5 miles as the crow flies, yet on any cellular service, we only get 1 bar out where we are. We're right there. There's downtown Fresno. There's plenty of service there. Cannot get fiber out to our farm. We believe in ag technology, but as the Assemblyman so eloquently said, ag technology is not the be-all to end-all, but it's going to help us be much more efficient, and it's going to help us produce something at a higher level, and that's what we are in California. We produce high quality, consistent products, food safety, high quality that consumers all around the world want. So that's what we want to produce. For us to get broadband, it's fixed, and just to get 75 megabytes per second down to power 6 cameras, security cameras that we have on our shop is costing us $250 a month. So for me to implement even more technology, I need to increase that, and that's going to cost me exponentially more. As the sheriff from Tulare County was talking about, security, we'd like to put cameras on all of our pumps. We have copper wire thefts. We have assets taken all the time. Cameras would be good, but we can't get service out there at a viable cost. So broadband is critically important to us as a small farmer to be able to implement. And we want to implement more ag technology, but it has to come at the right cost.
Absolutely.
So just all this talk about doing more studies, this is all good stuff, but practically we need to get it at a reasonable cost for us as a small producer to stay in business.
And just one comment back to the field trial scaling part of things. I'll put this in as an economic development effort, like what we're doing with F3 in the Central Valley, Ashley Swearingen's group and stuff, where the metrics are around economic wins and keep it local. We've got 700 plus automation startups around the world. Mixing Bowl helps us track them. We've got 1,200 plus, 1,300 plus now, but let's call it 2,000 biological automation startups. And it looks like somewhere around 2/3 of those are outside the US. We are a hard market to enter. We are an expensive market to enter. If we make that easier, and capital is that fuel, we will have more of those companies in the US. And just to give you one success story that Ben really facilitated, Eco Robotics moved over from Europe after FIRA 23. They were in market 60 weeks in the US with some partners of ours, Axis Ag. They moved 60 robots at 240 grand each. You guys can do the math. You want that business here? Make it easy for Eco Robotics to get here. Ben made it easier. It's still not easy. Again, 2,000 startups in hot segments. They'd all love to be here. It's just not that easy.
What would make it easier?
I mean, this guy, you need to say something. What would make it easier?
Well, I think we need to do a bit of like a life cycle assessment around like the day of life of startup. I'm sorry that my view is so focused or whatever, but I've always seen it as, Gabe and the Vine, UCNR has been phenomenal. WJ is phenomenal. I think everybody has their piece of the puzzle. I think what Danny Bernstein's going to do with the reservoir is wonderful. And for my early adoption, you have this random walk of product market fit. I got technology guys that built self-driving cars that put stuff on the moon and Mars and drove rovers. They can do anything in the world, but what does farming want them to do? So there needs to be a little bit more organized RFP process from my point of view, from the industry saying these are the industry needs. Washington State Tree Fruit Research Commission does that extremely well. I think you guys all know those folks and we've been partnered with them for a long time. And so that helps with that product market fit. I think the UC system can give us the third-party stamp of approval as a start. We do need that. The Bulls Farmings of the world, the other ones, they're really looking for the AgTech startups to be validated by somebody. I think WJ commercial access is phenomenal. I think what the Vine's doing with the trials throughout the entire state, us going to all the different research centers and doing those. I mean, Hannah dragged us up to the Oregon border, and we would have never gone unless she made the phone call and said, hey, there's growers up here. They want to see you. They're hungry for this technology. Come and bring it. And that provided us access. My secret to a lot of my success is actually the UC system. Nobody uses the extension agents well enough, I think.
I get a text from that guy maybe once a week.
That's totally true. That is a secret advantage.
They are been phenomenal, and it works in other states as well, but the system here just is so well developed. I think that a lot of the research, I have specific research where it's ad hoc and I want to do special things. I don't want it to be that onerous. There's other things where I want to study fungicide and insecticide usage with our machine, and it's a different mode of application, and there's safety and security concerns that we want to have validated and say, yeah, hand on heart, we're safe and we're good to go. And I think the UC system is a part of that. I think there's funding gaps as far as startup capital, and then there's a piece when the venture capitalists will take it on, and there's also a valley of death when you get that initial funding, and then how does that color of green change? What can we do with? This is a wild political world we're living in, right? The United States is going to have a sovereign wealth fund, which is crazy to me. But I don't know, why can't California have it, right? Why can't you guys, if there's funding needs, the Stanford model of taking 5% of every single IP that comes out of the university system seems to work extremely well for them, and doesn't seem to be too onerous as far as the IP conversation and how all that goes, right? Making those programs easier for us to understand. I think other economic development agencies of other states have been incredibly powerful in pulling our ear and offering things, and I don't get those same offers from from local folks in our own state, right? So I'm just kind of wondering where are some of those programs at. I don't know, the special economic zones and different opportunity zones, like I heard about that a while ago, but nothing ever really materialized from that. I know I supported and wrote letters of support a long time ago for special R&D tax credits, AgTech ag credits. There's one thing for us to make an expensive piece of equipment, but there's another thing helping the affordability of that equipment to folks like Jason, right? And getting in the hands of the farmers. And you know, once you get to a certain level of success, the ag directs and the DLL and the Rabo banks are willing to help you and find financing programs and do all that stuff. But there's a threshold that a startup has to cross to get there that I think is a gap in the market that can use. Yes, ma'am.
When you're done, I just want to add on to that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think the Israel and the New Zealand have done a phenomenal job for innovation grants, for giving little programs for folks. I think that is, I get jealous when I hear about these things and how well others like Steve Saunders at Robotics Plus and others have been able to leverage those innovation.
Blue, white,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these
All of them,
startups.
you know, and for me, like, yeah, you know, Rebel and American, like, want to compete and win in the market, but when I hear about other things, like, oh man, like, they've got a tool that I don't have access to, and have a little bit of leg up, and, you know, coming on home turf and playing the game, which is fun. It's why we're here. It's exciting, but it'd be nice for the same thing. I know some of these countries are small places that don't have a ton of stuff, and technology, you know, export is kind of what they're looking to do, but, you know, I think we need to remain strong and do the same things.
We've had multiple delegations funded by international governments. FIRA, Biological Summit, World AgTech, the last couple of years. I know you guys get some, I mean, Gabe likes his vacation, so he gets over to nice places. And I hope
I got restaurants.
I've got
I
Ukrainian farmers here right now.
I know we do some delegations, but their delegations are inevitably two groups, growers and startups, looking to figure out how to either make business happen or market expand. And that's the part I think we can do maybe more of.
Yeah, I just have two last points before I be quiet, but one of the things that I know that a lot of the folks in this room are part of is the workforce development. So I just want to applaud the work that we've done that. I think we continue to do that. There's a program in Yuma called YCETA. You guys are probably all familiar with it. They've done phenomenal, folks. Like, we're gonna take 15-hour jobs, and those are gonna turn into $80,000 to $150,000 jobs, right? And yeah, there won't be 200 of them. There'll be less of them, but they're gonna be thriving jobs, right? You're going way beyond subsistence living. So just continue to invest in those programs. Rachel Antonetti done a phenomenal job, and we've gotten some really good folks out of Fresno State through her and through those efforts. But it is from individual people making the difference, and I don't know how to get a better awareness for even myself on some of these programs. And just the last thing I'll say is that, you know, labor is a huge issue, and we have labor contractors now buying our machines because they're having a hard time accessing the workforce.
Yep. I saw AG's hand up, but before I go to you, just a heads up to Sonny and Gabe, because I have on my agenda that you're going to give us a summary of what you heard and what you see as next steps. And I want to perhaps come to you sooner, maybe come to you soon after AG so that you can share those thoughts, and we'll still have some time in case there's questions.
Yes, and Gabe is going first.
Okay.
Thanks,
I told
Mrs.
her to make it
Chairwoman.
out.
There we go. Just giving you a heads up, so that's coming. AG?
You know, sometimes you realize a door closes and another door opens. In the Imperial Valley, they lost 30,000 acres of asparagus 30 years ago when they could pick up and go to Mexico or to Peru or Central America. And everybody realizes in a second, if you have a robotic harvester of asparagus, which would probably be the easiest machine you could ever imagine, one guy up on a tractor across 12 rows, whatever it's going to be, that industry could come back tomorrow with just a little bit of encouragement and innovation. And this idea of some crops fit a single harvest or autonomous harvest, we know that because we don't have the rules for autonomous tractors, okay, well, how about one guy on the tractor replacing 40 guys or 50 guys? Those are the kinds of things where there's markets there to be had, and in other areas, there's, you know, you're trying to throw rocks at. We were talking about picking strawberries. Yeah, we're waiting for a strawberry harvester, maybe indoor it'll be working fine, but outdoors is a hard one. Or when is that first harvester for citrus coming out? So one interesting thing, that $1,600 an acre, right?
Per year.
A regular cost. Not that this is a model that works for everybody, but we're currently planting, weeding, and harvesting an acre a week at the South Coast Research Extension Center, specifically for the food bank. The food bank owns the crop. I'm just a farmer of record getting it ready to plant. And it's interesting, we're delivering about 40,000 pounds. Right now we're doing broccoli, cauliflower, and cabbage, going to the food bank every week, 40,000 pounds, 1 acre. And they own the crop. They are getting it to their clients ahead of a chain food, the food chain, the chain stores, and it's nutrient-dense foods. But the fascinating thing is the planting, the cultivating, weeding, and the harvest. 90% of it is done by volunteers from the community. A lot of the volunteers are coming out. If you see guys with vests on the side of the road picking up trash, the corporate sponsorship in an area that has a lot of volunteers coming from the community, that's the majority of the 8,000 volunteers we have annually. We're into our 4th year of this program. 2 million pounds a year delivered to the food bank, and it's an easy model because the Cooperative Extension, Research Station has helped dedicate land that really wasn't being farmed much. But my point in making this, there's new innovative collaboration alignment that can be done because of the door that was being closed. And now, for me, as a small grower in an area where we used to be a pretty big sized grower in a small pond, it's one of the only reasons we're still in business. Otherwise, we're about to pick up our tractors and go to Baja because it's $20 an hour as opposed to $20 a day. These are just really tough competitive disadvantages, or looking for new advantages. If you want to end hunger in our state, say we're the first state in the world to be able to say we don't have a nutrition problem here in our state, that could be done within a year or 2 or 3. I'm serious, because it's laid out how you would do it, because we have assets and have availability and have capacity and have the will maybe, which hasn't been in place. But if you wanted to just start to make these kind of breakthroughs, that might have turned some of the activists, some of the anti-big ag or anti-ag people that are out there, they just don't have a clue. Well, they have their own perception of why agriculture is bad, let me put it that way, or why agriculture is not, why it should be more dynamic and more hero. So I just throw that out there, that there's all kinds of different ways to start to look at how, with the technologies we have today, or with the existing resources that just we never thought they could be realigned this way. We could have done this project that we're doing right now 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago. We just didn't think about it, but it took the pandemic to make us realize, wow, God, there's all these resources right here in our own area, and we could step this up in all of Los Angeles, LA Food Bank, the San Bernardino Food Bank, the Riverside Food Bank, got millions of people on the ready to receive those kind of products in a project that would really help elevate the importance of specialty crops, for example, and technologies.
Yep. Alexandra.
I'll keep it very brief. I just want to also illustrate something for you guys when I am speaking to friends of mine across the aisle, right? We hear this piece of machinery can replace this many jobs. We in ag understand our margins are extremely small already, so doing things like that are growing increasingly necessary. However, I was at a policy training that they discussed one machine replaced 12 people. When a lot of us were just together as politicians, one of the Democrats said, why would I support losing jobs for underserved communities like the immigrant farm worker community? I can't support something like that. So that's where I've been trying to use as a negotiating tool when we're talking about that $1,600 an acre. Okay, then let's drive down the cost of regulation so we continue keeping those jobs, but we're forcing people to mechanize. So that's where, for those of you in this room that speak at the state legislature or the federal legislature, whether you're talking to Republicans or Democrats, you have to tell that full story to avoid people painting a very negative view of the very positive thing that we do in ag. So that just showed me, in my mind, I'm thinking, hey, that's great, we're becoming more efficient, we're maybe helping margins. And people that are across the aisle from me's mind, no, that's a farm worker who can't feed their family. So So making sure that we take that with constructive criticism and work on our marketing as ag to make sure that we're keeping jobs, but we're also keeping our doors open as well. So just food for thought on that.
That's a great point. I want to go to Dave. Hello. I gave you a heads up.
And I've been working to synthesize furiously since you said that.
He's typing furiously.
He's using AI.
Exactly. I might be.
I saw it.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
So I took a lot of notes. I may have ran it through ChatGPT to help us summarize it. But the action items, that came out of this, we need to think about how we're addressing the various regulatory burdens and policy roadblocks that we've all discussed here. There's a variety of actions. I'm going to get to some actions in a minute. Second, we really need to focus on securing additional investment in infrastructure. We've talked about broadband, we've talked about energy, we've talked about water. We need to align and advance our various AgTech commercialization and adoptions activities even further. We're doing it. We need to keep doing it. We need to keep doing more to align our activities and rationalize how we're investing and then commercializing as partners. And then work on really articulating and strengthening public-private partnerships and funding activities. Workforce development, we can't leave that out. We must have a skilled, future-ready workforce. We can't be losing jobs, and we have to tell the story of how we're upskilling workers with better jobs, even while we might be taking other less desirable jobs away. And we're strengthening overall commitment and the story around California as a global ag competitive leading state. Some of the specific sort of next steps, coordinating some policy and funding priorities between UCA&R, Western growers, both at the state level and national level. I think, Karen, your sort of call to we must really align and work together on some of the key asks. One thing I would observe, a lot of the work, the things we've talked about in terms of startup support, as well as farmer support, are things what I would call de-risking. So it's really removing the risk from the growers adopting a technology by us working together at the market and the university level, sort of by providing funding, providing field trials, places to do that work, but then also on the back end, providing de-risking to the growers in adopting it by offsetting the cost of it. And funding is needed actually on both sides and activities. So we've sort of articulated that, and I'll summarize that further. And then regulatory modernization, over-regulation and stifling AgTech innovation, especially related to things like AI, automation, biological solutions, and then really aligning our workforce innovation and farm sustainability goals against the lower cost international markets, which are going to continue to come at us. We have to come with our best plans and thoughts around aligning innovation. So.
Nicely done.
Fantastic.
Wow. Let's go ChatGPT.
Okay, Sonny, he's kind of put you on the spot there.
Well, first of all, I'll recommend that you retain him in his job.
That's my plan.
And then elevate his responsibilities. And I am not competent enough to use AI, so I just try to listen. I appreciate your framework. So I started in a very similar or aligned way, comparable with listening to what you were doing, Karen, as a so-called master plan. I really focus on an action plan. I was taken by your figures, Walt. So I start with a few data points that I get my little head around and then say, let's drive to those outcomes. And in any industry, I look at how are we going to retain our current market share and grow it to our potential, be it ag, be it something else. And then try to get state policy to actually recognize that and say, this is where we're going, we plant the flag, not going to lose any more market share, we're not going to let industry go anywhere else, we can partner around the world, and then take a plan, Karen, and get it memorialized in law that has an implementation imperative. that essentially is an omnibus bill that gives the right to innovation. And that any industry can come forward and show a better way to get to the goals that were adopted and challenge the regulatory agencies. So it's actually figure out how we flip everything 180 degrees from command and control to performance-based. Write that into, for ag, as I said, I'm going to call it an action plan. I want to get it recognized, but I think you want to embed in that. I mean, I go to the master plan for higher education, and we still don't have education performing to that master plan.
Exactly.
Okay, so the land-grant university that is the University of California has this extraordinary responsibility to be, in fact, fulfilling, as Gabe quoted me, you taught me ag, the cooperative extensions, the first tech transfer thought, and it was purposeful. It's like the most purposeful. It's just not optimized. And when I say purposeful, that goes to the partnerships where you have to really have a structured interaction of all of the stakeholders. And I think you, Secretary Ross, I know AG, you did this as well, and the university, but it's really on a very intense cadence of how to get to the innovation that you really are talking about to be able to bring in all size farmers. Now that has to rest under or be in the context of regulations that allow you to function and imperatives that have been adopted by the state in statute to get it done. And then on the workforce, as I was listening to everything today, there's so much opportunity for the current farm worker to go from the $18, $20 to the $80 and be actually upskilled, the term that keeps getting used, with innovation. But that also requires what you are all doing to, again, be very proactive and purposeful. So it's how executive leadership with legislative oversight keeps driving to outcomes. That's all in the context of what Gabe, you said, in order to get it done.
No, I think those are excellent. Any of our elected officials have a question or a comment? Did we miss anything? Or?
One thing that wasn't mentioned today is going to be the packaging requirements that are coming up as well. SB 54 is going to require us to have quote-unquote sustainable packaging. We know from a food safety standpoint, from a shelf life standpoint, things like that, we have a different issue than people who are packaging laptops and things like that. So on the innovation side of things, I'm working every channel that I can to get to the governor. Maybe Ms. Ross can help me with that, to have him take a second look at SB 54 of ways that we can, maybe walk that back. We're not the only industry engaged on that. So, but you guys have great partners in your commodity groups and things like that are engaging. Like I said, I got involved in this to protect agriculture. So if I can be a resource, I'm happy to do that, and I'll make sure these guys do their job too if they want, But yeah, that was something that I meant. When we're talking about cost of compliance, that could increase that cost as well.
No doubt. And talking to Canada, it's been challenging.
Yes, the warehousing as well is going to be another challenge.
I wish the folks who made the rules on this stuff would actually come with me to Driscoll's for a day and just look at the amount of alternatives they have tested, the amount they've invested in, and that they want to get out of the plastic business, they can't at the moment, and it's nobody's fault. But putting rules around it doesn't help much.
But so who do you want to go with you?
I wish the folks that made the rules around banning plastic as a supply chain element would come with me and see how much they've tried to do at Driscoll's differently at every part of the supply chain to remove plastic from it, including the packaging itself. There's a reason why those clamshells were plastic. It does the best job for the best economics. Nothing can match it. I mean, nothing comes close at the moment. And they've tried hundreds.
The same people that want to ban plastics are the same one that wants us to use DEF in plastic jugs and keep doing all, it's like, it's apples and, you can't there's no way around it. You know what I mean? It's just your plastics into everything.
Those
So-
are the same people that now want to add a tab to your water bottles that it flips open, and all the low-use plastic bottles that we have now can't sustain that, so we're not going to use low-use plastic either. The other point that I want to touch on, Sunny, is you're right, the regulation's out of control, but the problem is because half-baked ideas come out of Sacramento, and it's like a hot potato to these groups, and then they're allowed to interpret the law. And one thing I'll tell you is when we're talking about a to-do list, we kind of need to look back. And we need to bring up these laws that are not being implemented correctly, because right now the lack of oversight for the regulation is the problem. So policy is being passed, but I challenge the people that pass that policy to then ask them how is it being implemented. So we as legislators, like Sigma is a big example of that. There is not a lot I can do in the world of Sigma because it's now in the regulation world and it's in courtrooms. So when we're talking about asks of politicians, let's focus on killing bad bills that are half-baked, like the warehousing bill that I brought up. But now we're going to clean up legislation to fix something that the person who authored it admitted it wasn't great. But towards the end of session last year, for anybody who watched, they only allowed 30 seconds of debate for bills because there was 3,000 bills, and we were meeting the constitutional deadline. So
you can get paid.
So it's not about even getting paid. It's a matter of if these things didn't happen, these bills that wanted to be heard, they just were going to die.
Well, to add to that too, it's not even just the regulators; it's the staff.
Right.
Staff doesn't understand actually what they're actually reporting back to the like state board, for example, the state water board. You know, like the state board is getting recommendation from staff, and staff's supposed to be interpreting the law, but they're interpreting it their own way, not actually interpreting what the law says.
And you're getting more staff doing that because now we have term limits.
Right.
So where you have members that don't have a clue, whereas the staff in their 20, 30 years, they're running that shit.
And so they're just taking that, and it's just like taking, like, for example, like Carve down in Imperial Valley, and they have bad air quality. Well, it's not just Imperial Valley, it's Mexico burning their trash and the wind blowing it over the border. You know, so there's a lot of factors that doesn't go into thinking about, like with Sigma or Carve or anything like that.
Right. I mean, you can ask Casey. I bet you Casey's engaged on killing more bills than he has actually probably commissioning or authoring.
I'm more engaged on killing more bills.
Yeah, exactly. So if you truly are engaging on the political level, let's look backward and in the present, not so much let's create more laws so then they can create more regulation. We need to kind of work backwards a little bit. So be innovative, but also be present.
Thank you.
The other, I failed to actually underscore what Linda said, which is, could we get our broadband policymakers, regulators to understand the need for wireless and technology choices into the fields and the farmhouses. I think Secretary Ross, this CDFA is on the Broadband Council. It would be very good, you usually have your deputy be there if there was at least a requested item on the agenda of the Broadband Council to talk about the need for that technology so that Commissioner Out would hear. You're welcome. I mean, and for those of you in the legislature, the California Emerging Technology Fund is the only non-state agency on the council, and Senator Padilla insisted, it was his idea to do a council, he insisted on it, wasn't my idea, and he wanted somebody that was actually going to sort of have the ability to talk off script. I'm the only one who's not scripted. In any event, I think we could use that. That could be like one of those issues that comes forward. It's relatively easy for the commission to deal with.
Just real quick, yeah, my staff heads when they spend like 2 or 3 hours on a script and I go off, so it's common, and I love doing that. I just want to make a few points just to sum up with this meeting. Jason, to your point about waiting until 2017 or 2027, just so you guys all know, I was just in a 2-day energy conference involving CalISO, scientists, nuclear, PG&E, all of them are all in one room. There's like 30 of us in this room. There was probably over 150 of us in this room, just like this. discussing the same kind of issues that we're having here with ag that they're talking about with energy. So we're not, there's a bunch of silos going on in the state that we get to see or be part of. And so I think it's also part of my job also to help connect some of you guys together, because the same problems they have are the same problems that we're having here. Walt, you brought up labor. I know that's obviously an expensive thing. I sat on labor last year and I watched us with the overtime for laborers. Right? It sounded good on paper for my colleagues who know a 40-hour job, 8 to 5, but it doesn't work with ag when you have a harvest. They didn't know what a harvest was. Right? So now you have workers that planned on a harvest. That's what they're planning their budget on, and now they don't have it anymore, right? So a screw up on that because they're not educated. They don't know what they do. It's the unintended consequences. Well, I think it's just being lazy. Find out what things are and get involved with it more. And then to the point also that the assembly member was saying was economics. I think an economics class would be great for members to have. When we raised the fast food minimum wage, right? I asked some of my colleagues, why are we all for this? Well, they can afford a house now. Okay, well, everything else is going to go up too. They don't quite understand that, but that was their logic. Permitting, just so you guys know, we talked about laws being passed and that members thinking that, okay, what I just did a couple years ago is going through, but then we come to find out permits aren't being processed. They're not being handed out. Another conference part of and went to, Oil Symposium. Right? They usually get 200 plus permits a year. They were down to like 35 last year. And so the permitting isn't happening. So I know Buffy Wicks has a committee that she's doing. I know Heath Floor is part of that. They asked me to be part of it as well, to start bringing these agencies in. Why are you not permitting? Why are you not putting these through? So that is something I'm happy is going on right now. And then last is President of State here.
They're always not in the room. They were supposed to be.
So President
Stand up and be proud.
when we were in the other building speaking, Fresno was talking, and they were talking about solar on the fields, and being able to work with solar, actually still operate your field and still have solar is a big thing that I think we need to look into more. I went to a thing called the State Agricultural Rural Leaders Conference in Iowa on January 2nd. 3 degrees, it's freezing cold. They had a farm there that was showing us exactly what they are doing. So if you guys hear from the Fresno guy, please let me know. I'd like to connect them.
That's happening around the state more too.
Okay.
Davis is doing it
Well, the thing that we're falling into problems with is Williamson Act. Is what the big problem is on that, and I don't see why it needs to be
the only problem.
That is not
The only problem. But the other thing too is with solar. You talk about farming with solar panels in the fields.
Yes.
Okay, that's not going to happen because of Sigma. So the reason the solar panels are going in is because of Sigma. It's because farmers are looking ways of doing other things with their land, because they still got the taxes, they still got other things they still have to pay for, right? They still got land payment, they still got this. So when you're putting solar panels in, you're not doing it because you want to keep farming. You're doing it because that's your only option.
So no source of revenue.
And you don't have the water to be able to farm with as it is. So that's, in Iowa they could do it because it rains. So, but
well, this was from a different state. You got to keep in mind this group that I went to, Canada, was there. Every legislator from the state.
More water still. You know what I mean?
But they're going to be here next year. We're going to host it. I'm trying to get it hosted in Fresno, so I'll try and make sure that you guys all know about this, because I'd really love your guys' input.
And there's not a one-size-fits-all, because there is some great agrivoltaics work happening in Oregon and Washington State.
Yes.
So it's not completely dire.
Casey wanted to say something.
And I want to respect people's time too.
Yeah.
So.
And I'll be very brief. The one thing that I heard from this meeting is we got to have internet access. If we don't get internet access right now, like anything, so if we can focus on one thing as a group to try to get something done, let's do that. Then hopefully all this other stuff that everybody's sort of working on will move forward. The second thing, we do a horrible job of outreaching to our urban legislators who we need to get involved in this. And so it's fantastic that we've got our locals here. But agriculture as a whole has to get out and meet with people and help them understand them. And one of the problems and why we don't get them is because we talk to them with all of our 50 million problems and they're burdened, and then they've got 50 million problems in their own district. So if we can focus on one thing, make progress, utilize the relationships that you guys have, let's try to do that a little bit more, and we'll probably start moving the needle a little bit one at a time.
Exactly. Yeah, that's an excellent point. I do want to respect people's time. We are past what we asked you to be here for. I want to thank you all. I know everybody's busy, everybody's got very full calendars, and yet you were here for 2 hours on some tough conversations. But I think based upon what we heard from Gabe and Sunny, and actually I think Casey, you made an excellent point there about the focus, we've got some next steps that we can pursue. We're going to get some results and feedback from this that people can utilize. I know I'm planning on having my policy institute make full use of this to get what we can to help support it. But I think this was a great conversation today, so thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Hi, I'm Karen Ross, and I'm Secretary of the California Department of Food and Agriculture. We're here at the University of California UC A&R offices in Tulare County, across the street from the World Ag Expo. Today's the opening day of the Ag Expo. It's all about technology this year, and we've had several really great presentations earlier this morning by folks in AgTech and in farming and in academia and in the research community. And then we just finished a really robust roundtable with the whole business sector that's involved in AgTech. Really informative, trying to, like, how do we move forward? How do we accelerate the tools that we all are going to need for the future? The CTAF has really been a major player in getting us to the stage where we are as far as deploying broadband connectivity, the understanding of we can't move forward in a lot of the AgTech tools that are going to be available to us if we don't have connectivity. And that means not just to the farmhouse or to a rural community. We actually are going to need it in the farm fields themselves to really be able to advance with the kinds of innovations we know are possible and absolutely necessary as we deal with the changing climate, changing markets, changing water availability.